This episode is brought to you today by Threative VFX Studio. Take your dumb devices and make them smart for Home Assistant with ESP Home. Threative will show you how to hack and upgrade everyday devices into smart ones with easy-to-follow step-by-step tutorials with the full code included. Head over to YouTube and check out Threative. That's 3-ATIVE. Threative. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Smart Home Collective. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jamie True, who's the head of development at Simpled. Jamie, how are you doing?
Very well indeed, thank you. Thank you for asking, Lee. Thank you very much for having us on. It's really, really nice for us to have a chance to be on somebody else's podcast and you know, do it from a different angle, a different view, and perhaps be able to answer some more questions about our own business rather than other people. So I really, really appreciate you having us on.
Good, super. So Simpled, for those who don't know, Simpled are a UK-based smart lock company, and the reason that I was really interested to get you on is first and foremost, I don't have a smart lock. I'm always on the fence of should I, shouldn't I? Is it secure? Is it, you know, all those myriad of questions that come with it. So I was on X or Twitter one day and somebody mentioned Simpled. I thought, oh, okay, that's a company I've not heard. So reached out to you, Jamie, and really thankful that you're taking the time to come on. So before we go into Simpled, a little bit about head of business development for Simpled. Interesting to know in terms of what your role is, kind of, and almost a one line tagline of what Simpled is.
Yeah,
as a starter.
Yeah, of course. So, I guess the first thing is the one-time tagline of what Simpled is. Simpled, in our opinion, it's not just a name. It's we really want to use this technology to help people. So there's plenty of situations in which you'll be able to help people, and outside of what you would expect a smart lock to be able to do. So things like carers and people with dementia and, you know, elderly who struggle. So Simpled is here to help people elevate their smart home experience in exactly the way we say, in a simple way, with an easy to use app, easy to use product, and hopefully will be a pioneer of helping people use this technology moving forwards in many different facets. So my role is ever evolving, and it's been a really, really fun 2 years that I've been with Simpled. So originally, obviously, you've got the B2C side of things, which we're always trying to grow, and I did that by creating videos and guides, and obviously we attended trade shows and things like that. But then another side of my business is actually working with other companies, be that locksmiths, ironmongers, be that companies who are creating a product to help the elderly or whatever it is. My job is to go and speak to as many people like that as possible, see if there's a fit, and see if we're able to do something that helps all sides rather than it just being sort of a tech toy. It's far more than that.
Okay. So I'm guessing 2 years as kind of the development role, you're really just immersing yourself in the tech. But actually, funny enough, not even just the smart home tech, but as you said, ironmongery, locksmiths world.
It's
funny because I always think when you're renewing home insurance, you still get these silly questions. Is your door a mortise, 5 point? For Joe Average, these questions go way over your head, which I'm guessing you're an expert with.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a steep learning curve, I can tell you that much, because I had no real experience with locksmithing or anything like that. There was a lot of things that I had to learn from day one. But I would like to think that I've got a good understanding now to be able to help people move forward if they've got just general questions. But we also have a really fantastic support team here at Simpled, with people who are far smarter than I am in terms of compatibility and in terms of what can be done and what can't be done. And we also have a partner locksmith that we work with that actually does all of the installations of our products for us, if someone wants it, obviously. And they're really, really useful for us to be able to help customers where if it's something that's a little bit out of our remit, we can pass it on over to them. introduce them to the team over there, and they're able to help them support, and then hopefully that will work out to them buying a smart lock through us, perhaps having Smart Choice install it, and it be the exact thing that they need for what they're looking for.
Okay, good. Okay. So before we go into, what I'm really interested to kind of learn more about where Simples came from, its journey, its products, and kind of the future it's going. But before we do so, I always love when you're speaking to smart home companies to kind of just to get a feel for what's your smart home like. Are you, sometimes you find it's a job, therefore I don't take my job back into my home. Like other people really go for it. So from a smart home point of view, is it way out there? Is it, what have you got? What's enabled? What's your favorite bit of kit?
So I totally agree with you. There are plenty of roles out there that you don't want to bring home with you. Chefing, for example, if you're chefing, the last thing you want to do is cook dinner when you get home. I'm lucky in terms that even though I spend all day talking about smart locks, it excites me, and I find so many uses for my smart locks in my property. So I actually have our Slim series on the front door, which is the one for multi-point locks, which I've got all of my friends and family registered onto. So if we go on holiday, or if I'm in London doing a trade show, and my friend Che needs to come and give my 2 cats some dinner, he can just let himself in. And then what's really good about that is I can then see on the phone, on the app, that Che has come in at this time using his fingerprint, for example. And I then know that the cats have been fed. But then I've also got all of my internal doors have got our Leverline product on it, which is one of my favorite pieces of our kit, just because it's so clever in terms of most smart locks will require a specific type of mortise that you would have to pair with the right smart lock to make that work. But obviously internal doors, 99.9% of the time, they're literally just a handle with a latch. And then people think, okay, if I needed to make my internal doors smart, would I have to then go and spend a load of money to get a new mortise in there, something that's a multi-point lock or whatever it is, so I can get the Slim series? That's not a problem with the Leverline. It literally works on standard, just internal latch and handle doors, and basically we have a hollow spindle that's included with the product. The wire goes straight through, you don't need to do any drilling whatsoever, and it works by disengaging the spindle unless I have a valid input. So when the door's shut, if I pull the handle down, it won't retract that latch unless I have my fingerprint or my code or something, and that will let me in. So I've got all of those on my internal doors, and then of course I've got our Wi-Fi bridge as well, which allows complete remote management for me, and also things like linking it to Alexa and Google Home, which is a nice nifty little feature at times.
Super.
So I've gone pretty much all out.
And also the family, you've obviously pushed into the family as well, so you've got them on board with the smart locks.
Everybody loves it. It was, I mean, like I said, it's at first everyone's, oh wow, that's neat, and then as soon as something happens where they realise that that's actually a solution to a problem, it's such an easy sell, especially for pretty much anyone, but especially for family and friends. They look at it and they think that's great, but then when they're able to get into my house to do whatever they need to do, if I'm not there, they suddenly think, oh, it's more than just, cool. It's really, really useful. So yeah, it's been good to get this out to multiple people.
Yeah, super. So you said you joined Simple 2 years ago. Where's the company came from? Because it's relatively, maybe being a bit unfair, I feel it's relatively new, maybe because I haven't seen it as the likes of Nuki, etc., the more international ones. So where's the company came from, and how did it then find its roots within the UK?
Great question. So we actually have a parent company called Eucalife in the Middle East, and they've been going for about 15 years. So the CEO of that company, he was on the forefront really of smart lock technology, because 15 years ago, there are people, like you said, that haven't heard of smart locks even now, let alone our company, but haven't heard of smart locks in general. 50 years ago, I dread to think how difficult those conversations must have been to try and change perceptions and get people to recognise that this is the way forwards. So they did that, and they pretty much monopolied the Middle East. Eucalife has done amazing, and they still to this day do an incredible amount of sales, an incredible amount of things to help the community. and it's just in a really, really good place. So the CEO of that company, his son, Amir, who was also working with Yuka Life since the beginning, obviously as he got older, he then got to a position where he understood the business, he understood the niche and how you needed to upgrade these products to match all of the changing regulations and all of the changing situations that happen, be that software, be that hardware, whatever it is. So he then said, how about I take this company and we bring it to the UK? So we did that about 3.5, 4 years ago. Again, we're in a really good position where there are other companies out there perhaps that are going to start, well, they will. There'll be plenty of companies that start jumping on the bandwagon when they realise this is the direction of travel, of course. And that's great, because the more competition out there, the better people get it, the more right they get it. The trouble is like, if there's just one company out there, obviously they can pretty much do what they want, and it might not be the best thing to
competition drives, I mean, it's a bit cliche, but more competition drives innovation, I suppose. If you're forced to innovate and deliver new products, it's better for the market as well.
Exactly, that's exactly it. So we already had obviously a massive range of products from our Yuka Life parent company, in which we were able just to slot straight into the UK. And originally we were primarily e-commerce, so we were just on Amazon, our website, eBay, places like that, and then started to build relationships with B2B at the same time. So like I said, be that locksmiths, be that people who would resell our locks and start to get ourselves out there. And recently, given it really is just consistently growing in the right direction, and we've been able to do more trade shows and things like that. And I think now the UK is still behind a lot of the rest of the world. I mean, the USA has smart locks everywhere. The Middle East has smart locks everywhere. Asia has smart locks everywhere, and the UK is just a little bit behind that.
Why do you think that is? And I'm certainly one of the people who have not jumped on it just yet, which is bizarre given that everything else in the house is a smart home. But is it a culture thing? Is it just there's no interest for?
I think it is. I think it's a culture thing, and I think it's really interesting, because I think we are very slow to trust and adopt new technology. We're very, I would say, as a people, we're very skeptical, and I think it takes a lot of time. Whereas like the US, a good advert, and they'll give it a go. They're like, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go. And they're not stupid. If it doesn't work, they'll get rid of it, but they'll give it a go. Whereas people in the UK, we're very much like, I'll wait and see X, Y, and Z, or however many people get it. And exactly, it makes it a bit slow. So that's what I think it is. But I also know that when we figure out something that works, we go very, very hard on it, which is why, again, we can see our projection, going like that, because the more people that start to understand these and do make the leap, they don't go back. And that will only happen. I often compare it to things like Alexa. 5 years ago, not many people had an Alexa. My parents, who are 60 plus, they have like 4 or 5 in their house. So it's just, once people realise this is a useful piece of kit, we get behind it quite heavily. So we think that that's probably the direction it's going to go.
No, it's true. I mean, there was a point when I got first into smart home. I think I got the very first gen of the Alexa Dot. So it was the Dot one, and the only lights you could really buy at them were Philips Hue. And people thought I was mad for spending that amount of money and just so you could turn the light on by voice. Obviously, appreciation at the time, the functionality has grown since then and what you can do with it. But all of a sudden, you're right, smart lights is just it's almost standard. Everybody knows what they are, and a large proportion of people have them. Whether or not,
you can just get them in plugs now. Yeah, correct. Just get them in plugs that you can just put any. Yeah.
So do you think just smart locks are just on the cusp of that breakthrough and wide-scale adoption?
Yes, I do. And I think that it will be very quick. I think over the next year or two, the influx in smart locks pretty much everywhere is going to be evident. Obviously, there are going to be certain situations where a smart lock, or certainly the smart locks as they are now, are not going to be viable. Things like a bank vault door and things like that. You're going to want. There's always going to be a place for traditional lock and key. That's not going anywhere. But in domestic and commercial uses, smart locks are becoming more and more used because people are realizing how many different functions they can use to manage their business or their house in a way that they weren't able to do with a traditional lock and key. And there's nothing wrong with a traditional lock and key. Like I said, it'll always have its place, but I do think over the next 12 to 24 months, it's going to be a massive influx in the UK.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. From a product line, now I'm going to just, for those who are watching this on YouTube, I'm going to just bring a screen up from a product lineup point of view. Then, so you've got, I mean, fantastic, and I must admit, Jamie, they're good looking, very good looking locks. I mean, aesthetically very pleasing. They look pretty slick. So multi-point locks, spindle locks, cylinders. Is there anything, and apologies my ignorance from a locksmith point of view, is there any type of locks that we're missing here that you've still to add, or is it just cover the breadth of UK locks?
It pretty much covers the lot. There are always going to be very bespoke mortises in certain situations, but 95% of UK mechanisms to this day, we are able to retrofit one of our locks into it. And that's another key point of ours, is that they're retrofitted. They're not, you don't need a special mechanism. You don't need a special mortise. It should fit into pretty much any existing mortise, unless it's obviously ridiculously bespoke or something that doesn't use a traditional mortise. And perhaps, we went to the Grand Design Show, and we were exhibiting there, and I saw a company, I think they were called Stronghold, and they did like doors, but their doors were next level. Obviously, our smart lock, they were almost a smart lock in themselves, and in situations like that, someone's obviously not going to be able to get something that works, but the chances are they pay 15 grand for that door or whatever they paid. They don't need a smart lock. This is for like the average person. You don't need to be a techie. You don't need to have a load of money. You don't need, all these things that perhaps you think you do to be able to have a smart lock on your property. That it really is an easy transition to make.
Okay, super. Yeah, I mean, the design wise, they do look nice. I mean, some of I think certainly the the Slim series.
So all of the multi-point lock ones. Yeah, so this is an interesting point as well. So I'll just go into to give you an idea of what I mean by 95% of existing mechanisms, because all of the long thin ones you see are for multi-point locks, where you lift the handle, the hooks engage, etc. Now, some multi-point locks will only require 45 degrees for the handle to go up and 45 degrees for the handle to go down for it to fully retract the latches. However, some will require 180 degrees. See, now things like this is where if we'd only created one product, we'd have a whole, group of people who wouldn't be able to use the product because the handle wouldn't go either up or down far enough. And the EF that you're on there is a version of the Slim series that will go 180 degrees up and 180 degrees down. So we've got multiple. Even if it's a multi-point lock, you'll have different types of multi-point locks, and we've got a lock that should retrofit into any type you've got.
So I know, and from personal speaking, my front door, thinking when I'm standing at it, it points so that on your left hand you pull down, so it's not a right-handed one; it's almost a left-handed one. Mm-hmm. Are these switchable or?
Totally reversible. Totally reversible. So with our standard ones, which is the Slim series, the EF, things like that, or our current ones, all you have to do is unscrew a little screw in there, flip it, and screw it back in. But we've actually patented 2 features on our brand new lock that's coming out, the SS, and that has a gyroscopic feature where if it's not on the mortise, you can literally just flip the handles without doing any screws, flip it whatever direction you need to flip it, and then once it's on the mortise, that will stop it from flipping further. It won't. So obviously, once you lift the handle, the mortise will stop it going any further, so it won't then go the other side. But it's little things like that just make it even easier for people to swap left and right.
Absolutely, yeah, super. And certainly better for adoption as well. So connectivity wise, you did mention the hub. So is it all through? Is it Wi-Fi, Zigbee, but through hub? What's the connectivity?
You can totally choose. So they're Bluetooth as standard, and that's okay for most people. Most people that are doing this domestically, that perhaps have one lock on their front door, and they're not going to be changing or adding new codes too regularly. Once you've added your friends and family, you might add one occasionally, or if you fall out of a friend, you might remove one occasionally, but you're not going to be doing it consistently. And as such, Bluetooth is fine. When they're setting somebody up, they just have to be next to the lock for that one time to set them up, and then they don't need to be next to the lock. That saves on the lock. The locks
and that
all
means
have
there's no hub. That's just local, straight onto the device, no hub
Correct.
required. Okay.
Exactly. However, if you're running an Airbnb, which is another big part of our market, and perhaps you've got 2 or 3 of these locks in all different locations, and you're changing the codes weekly, you do not want to be going back to the property every time you need to change a code. So in that regard, you can just easily pair it with one of our Wi-Fi bridges, which will allow complete remote management of the lock. So you can be on a beach in the Barbados if you want to, and you could remove a code, add a code, whatever you need to do, check the logs, and that's really, really good for commercial use, but you can choose.
Okay, super. Oh, really interesting. Okay. And from a hub point of view, and this is one of the questions we're getting from the community, is it any Wi-Fi hub, or does it need to be specific with the simpled hub?
It's a great question. So we've not made it specifically so that you have to use our hub. Yeah. However, nearly everything to do with smart lock security in each individual company is encrypted. Yeah. So most things are encrypted to only work with their products. It's a way to, stop it being as easy to hack something. For example, so let's say our fobs, for example, you have to use our fobs, because if you could use anyone's fobs, it's just gives someone even, it's another avenue where they can say, I've already got the piece of kit, now I just need to figure out how to do whatever. And I'm sure we'll touch on that. It's not easy to hack at all, but it's because of things like that, each company being diligent about saying, this is the connectivity that should work with our lock. So even though it's a standard 2.4 GHz connection, it's as a general rule of thumb, I'm pretty sure all of ours will only work with our Wi-Fi bridges, and that is actually through the software, which is a third party, and I'm sure we'll touch on that as well. So they really, so TT Lock, which is the free software that we use, they've got banking level encryption. They're the largest company worldwide for software providing for smart locks. 95% of PCBAs worldwide. So even if, you've got companies like Remote Lock, they kind of go through TT Lock as well. Everything touches with TT Lock a little bit. And they work really hard to make sure that it's not hackable. And they're the ones who put this encryption for each company, I believe, on each side. So I always say to people, if you've got a bridge, have a go with it. If it doesn't connect, then it's not going to do anything bad to your lock trying to connect it to a different one. But as far as I'm aware, you'd probably need one of ours due to encryption purposes.
Sure. So it's a good segue. So you touched quite a bit on security-wise, and I think that's probably the reason I've maybe not been a fast adopter of it. So, and the thinking being, silly as it may be, you've got a smart device in your front door, the main entrance to your door, you lose that old comfort of a physical key, and illogical thinking would suggest that actually somebody can come up and hack it, and all of a sudden access to your door, or the reverse is they come up to the door and your phone don't have your phone or something, you can't get access to your own home. So sell me, Jamie, because I won't be alone with that line of thinking, and given that I'm a full adoptive smart home, there'll be other people thinking exactly the same, to think, how secure are these devices in this day and age, and is it a bigger risk? I'm being facetious because I know the answer could be about the conversation, and I actually know I've already talked myself around it. But from a comfort point of view to the broader kind of audience who have not adopted these, how are they secure as a standard lock and key?
In my opinion, more secure, and I can give you a couple of reasons as to why. So, in terms of the software side of things and hacking, one of the big things that we had, and you're right, you're not alone in this question. It is a frequently asked question that we get, and it's a valid question, because you've got companies like Range Rover who had this big problem recently of people being able to duplicate the car keys remotely, basically, and they were able to just walk.
TVRs, the Land Rover Sport TVRs was the big or TVDs,
Yeah.
whatever the range is. But I saw that on YouTube was a big thing that kind of duplicated.
And the reason why it's almost one of these innovation can sometimes be the enemy, where they said, what would be cool, what would be easy, it would be if I could just walk up to my car and it just recognizes that I'm getting close and I can just open it and I can just turn it on without mucking around with keys. I just have to have some sort of fob on me. That's all I need to do. And that's a great idea. The issue with that is it sends frequencies out within a certain range, because obviously it has to have a certain range for the car to recognize the frequency. Trouble with that is, let's say you've got a 10-meter bubble around you where it's shooting out that frequency for your car all the time, because it's always doing it. It doesn't just turn on when you get close to the car. Obviously, it picks it up when you get close to the car. So it's always sending the frequency. And people bought, I saw a terrifying video on it. It was some piece of kit that you can buy off eBay for about £5,000, which is a lot of money. But it basically allowed people to just sit in their car where they watched someone with a Range Rover that they were trying to target pull up. They would get out, they'd get the car close to it using this machine, because they're within the frequency range. It would then duplicate it, and they would just get in the car and drive off.
I saw, yeah. So and it was the it's the SVRs, not TVRs. SVRs was the one I saw. Yeah, and that re-emphasizes how secure is a fob or your house, your lock.
Exactly. So because of that, and we do get asked this question regularly, is this proximity in terms of, can I just walk up to my door and it recognizes and let me in? And the answer is no. With our locks, no. And the reason being is that very reason, is we don't want anything shooting out a frequency to a certain distance that can be picked up. So our fobs, they're RFID. So you have to get it right up to the sensor for it to then pick up the frequency and unlock the door if that was registered. So what this means is, if somebody was to try and hack one of these fobs, first step, they would have to get the fob off you, actually get it off you. Then they would have to try and compete with TT locks, banking level encryption, to somehow manage to gain access to your account with your lock on there. Then they would have to stand there, add the key, or whatever it was that they were trying to do to duplicate, and then hold that up to the door. But then they would have to get that back to you without you ever realizing it was gone. Because the second you realized it was gone, you could just go on the app and revoke it. So even if they duplicated that frequency is no longer active. Yep. So it would be very, very, very difficult. Nothing's impossible. Nothing's ever impossible. I'm not going to sit here and say it's impossible to hack our locks, impossible to get and do whatever, because it's not. Nothing's impossible, but it makes it so difficult that, you know, it's almost not even worth trying to do, because you think that it's going to be a really hard heist, and I might get in there and there's nothing in the house. You know what I mean? So it almost does not make it worth it.
Yeah, and we did speak about it, that if somebody's going to go to the effort to get all that piece of kit, regardless of what safeguards you got in your house, they're coming in.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly it, and this is why I said that I believe that they're more secure than the traditional locking key. Because what people don't understand as well is, or what they don't think about, is that they're worried about it being hacked somehow and someone being able to then just have access to your house. But if you've just got a standard Euro cylinder, you can look up these videos. Locksmiths do it all the time. All you need is a chisel and a hammer, and in 2 hacks, that Euro cylinder breaks and comes through, and they can get in the house in about 2 hits. Yeah. So in the case of, that's all people would hear, and they're in your house anyway. So it's not like it would draw a load of attention. Whereas with our locks, there's nothing for them to push in. Interesting you said about the key earlier. All of our locks come with mechanical keys, backup keys, just in case. Because like you said, that is one of the things that if you're taking that leap of faith with technology, you do want that safeguard, because anything can go wrong with tech. And you don't want to be locked out of your house, like you said, and try and break into your house. So with that, mechanical keys will override everything. But the key cylinder is on the bottom of the lock, and it doesn't affect the spindle side of it, that side. So you can't bang it in because it can't go up through the lock, whereas the other one just goes back through the door. So, and even if they were doing that, they wouldn't get that far. And this is something that, again, makes it more secure than a traditional lock and key. All of our locks have tamper alerts on them. So if someone's doing something unsavory to the lock, it will start making a siren noise for 30 seconds, quite loud, which is a great deterrent because, like you said, if somebody wants to get into your house, they'll just go through a window or something. If they want to get into your house specifically,
coming in.
they'll either kick the door down or they'll break a window or they'll do whatever. Most robberies in this regard are people that are just chancing. You know, they're like trying the door handle. If it opens, great, they'll go in and they'll see what they can do, grab the first couple of things they see. But with ours, even if they were then to try and do something and it starts making a siren noise, it's no longer worth it. You know, it's too much attention to them and they'll walk away. Plus, that will then tell you on the app that the siren has gone off. So you then know if you've got a Ring doorbell or something like that, you can check the camera. And this is something you don't have with the traditional lock and key. You know, all of those steps that makes it much harder to break in. Whereas if you've just got a standard Euro cylinder, like I said, you do that, no one's going to think twice about it. And if you're in a gated area like myself, where my garden's obviously behind a gate and my front door's in there, someone walked through my gate and did that, no one would think twice. You know, if I wasn't in, no one would say, oh, it sounds like someone's breaking in, because they can do it so quickly, it's scary.
And actually, see, the alerts on the app, so I've got a Yale smart home alarm now. Yeah, yes, it's smart, but actually the single feature of it, which I love it so much, is if we're on holiday and there's motion in the house, the app or the alarm goes off, the app will tell you now.
Mm-hmm.
That one alert, I think it's more useful being able to know your alarm's going off remotely as opposed to the siren outside. The siren's going outside, the burglar will still go about to do the rush business, but it's that comfort to know is when I'm away from home, I'm going to get an alert should something go wrong. Mm-hmm. Like you've just said with the lock, if someone's tampering with it, you're going to get a ping to say, by the way, someone's
Exactly. And I know we'll probably touch on it later, but some of the innovations that we're making are to take this even further in the way of security, because a lot of people then don't have a camera outside. So if they get that alarm, you know, they can call somebody, but the chances are, like I said, if they've got that alarm come off, the chances are the person's walked away from the door, unless they're specifically trying to get into your house again. But we're doing things like adding digital door viewers and things into our locks, which will then allow a camera to be in the lock as well. So why would you need multiple different devices when you can just have one device?
That's a great segue. Actually. So from a future point of view, so the thought of a camera being in a lock is mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's tough, and the reason it's tough is battery life, because you need to weigh things off, because we work really hard on our power consumption. Yeah. Our locks have got some of the best power consumption of any smart lock I've seen anywhere in the world. Ours can last a year to a year and a half on 4 AA batteries, which we also provide in the first instance. So for the first year and a half or so, you're not going to need to worry about changing your batteries at all. It will also warn you when the batteries are running low on the app, so you'll have plenty of time to change them. And even if you didn't change them, we've got 2 backups. One is the key that will allow you to just override everything and get in. But we also added one more feature on all of our locks, that if the key was inside, because we had people call up and say, I've let the batteries run out, it did give me the warnings, I'm really sorry, and both of my keys are inside. Okay, so with all of our locks, we also added a mini USB port that you can plug a power bank into the outside of the lock, which will give it just enough juice for you to pop your fingerprint on, get in and change the batteries. So you should never ever be stuck. But people don't want to have that worry of the batteries dying all the time. They don't want to change the batteries every 3-6 months. So that's the challenge I think most people find. But we are, as always, on the forefront of innovation, and we're pretty sure we're close to being able to deliver that. I mean, interestingly enough, our Eucalife branch has some things that aren't even allowed really in this country at the moment properly, and that's things like facial recognition door locks. We've got facial recognition door locks in the Middle East. Over here, there's some red tape that needs to be crossed, and again, this is where when the country is slow to adopt, there are certain things they say, oh, well, you know, you shouldn't really. We're just going to say that that's not allowed until we look into it enough and figure it out. So it's just sort of waiting on all of the back end stuff.
From almost a legislation, regulation point of view, that at the moment it's inhibiting innovation within your products within the UK because of that.
Yeah. I mean, but it's something that as a Brit, we're all pretty used to. You know, it takes us a long time to do anything, in my opinion. You know, any sort of bill that gets passed through, any legislation, it all takes time. I mean, I came from the property industry originally, and that is just inundated with legislation that is constantly changing. You know, the amount of landlords that don't use a fully managed service, and they're really at risk, not because they're trying to be criminals, just because they're constantly changing legislation. And one thing might be okay one week, and the next week it's totally abolished. And if you can still doing that thing, you can be fined a crazy amount of money. And it's very, very difficult to stay on top of it all. But it does seem like the country is now, you know, again, even the legislation side of things, more people, and this is where competition's useful as well. Companies like Yale have got some really good accreditations on their locks, which is amazing. And that's something that takes a long time to get. But by someone being able to do it quicker, it speeds up everyone else. Because once one person's got it, obviously then the groundwork's set for other companies to be able to come in and do it. So this is where, again, competition is great. So it's slowing us down a little bit, but we're fingers crossed it will speed itself up in classic British fashion, and then we'll all be like, yeah, smart locks on everything. We'll totally forget if we ever slowed it down.
So products wise, and any kind of, in the range at the moment, really nice looking locks, and you've got a good range covering all the kind of UK standards at the moment. Where are you going with anything in the future that's upcoming that you kind of want to share, talk about?
So yeah, the one on the far left there is our brand new lock that's coming, the SS, and this is one that we've got a couple of patented features on. One of them is the gyroscopic ability to change the handle, right? And then on the inside of this handle, so this is something else. So I'll just give a bit of understanding on this, and the range again of all of the different needs that you might have. Obviously, we covered that you might have a mortise that requires 45, and you might have one that has 180. But even beyond that, it depends on the use that you're using this for. So our standard Slim Series locks are always locked from the outside, so you can't get in unless you have a valid entry code or fingerprint. But from the inside, it's always unlocked. The handle's always engaged. So where Airbnb is a big part of our market, they need that for fire regulations because it has to be panic exit. So the standard Slim there. But let's say you've got a big dog or kids or a letterbox in a compromising position that you're worried about the inside handle always being engaged. We've got the double-sided smart lock, which is our original solution that required a fingerprint or a fob on the inside to get outside as well. So if someone did reach through a letterbox, it wouldn't do anything. If you had a big dog, they couldn't just open the door, etc. But we found that there were people that said, you know, love the feature, just wish that you could turn it on and off because I've only got the kids 3 nights a week, or the dog only comes around on weekends, and I don't want to be doing that when I'm on my own all the time, having to do it. So with the SS, we patented another feature, which is almost like a child lock on the inside that requires you to push a button and slide something across, which is impossible to do with, because this is the other thing as well, even with letterbox, people think a lot of the time their hands are going through. It's not hands, it's hooks. People's hands can't, unless they've got a child helping them break into a house, chances are they're not getting their hand through the letterbox. So with this feature requiring a push and a slide, impossible to do with a hook or a coat hanger or anything like that. But then you can just click it off. So let's say the dog is over on the weekend, stick it on child lock, which means the inside handle is then locked. If he's jumping up to the door, it won't work. It doesn't affect the outside, so anyone can just, even if the inside's locked on the lock, the outside will still allow you to open the door as long as you've got a valid input. But then the dog leaves and you want to just be able to open the door yourself from the inside, you just turn that off and it will let you in.
Really nice. And
so there are a couple of the features that are coming in our brand new lock, and obviously we're working very, very hard on the cameras being built in, and finally we're working on a new Matter hub that will allow much larger, obviously, connectivity to all different softwares and things like that. So we're constantly working on innovations, and we're always open to anybody calling up or sending an email and saying, I think this feature would be useful, and we can then either explain why we haven't done that, or if it's something, because there have been times, like I said, with the mini USB on the outside, that was simply due to customer feedback. It was just simply a case of I didn't put my keys somewhere safe in a lockbox or with a neighbour or something like that, and they needed a different way to get into the property. So that was purely based on customer feedback that we were able to integrate that. So we're always opening.
And again, lovely looking lock. It does look the SS does look really slick looking.
Yeah, the colour preferences on those ones as well are going to be really good. We have we've never had a pure white lock before, like a pearl white one, and obviously a lot of people, including myself, have got like a white UPVC door on their front door. And silver looks great, and black looks great too. To be fair, I like the contrast, but a lot of people have been asking for a white lock, and I've seen a concept of our pearl white SF, and it is stunning. It's definitely the one I'm going to be getting on the door as soon as it's available.
Yeah, they're good looking devices. So yeah, for the listeners, if you haven't already checked it, check out simple.uk/product. The whole range of locks are there if you're curious to check some of those out. But yeah, good looking locks, Jamie. So apart from buying them online, are they're currently stocked in any brick and mortar stores?
Great question. So we have certain locksmiths around the country and places like that who will stock some of our products and then sell them out. As a general rule of thumb, it's not like we've got stores as such that I can guarantee stock will be in X. So we do have people call up and say, is there any way I can pick one of these up today? And I'll ask where they are, and obviously I can talk about the partners that we've got closest to them, but there's no guarantee that they'll have stock on hand because they kind of do it ad hoc. However, we've also been speaking to a fantastic distribution company called Thames Distribution, who is working very, very hard with us to get our smart locks in a range of well-known stores. So at the moment, we're currently on the online portals for B&Q, we're currently on the online portals for Homebase, and we're working on getting these in stores. Obviously, there are certain legislation and things that need to be done before that's allowed. And again, this is where things have slowed down a little bit as well. But once all of that gets worked out, you should start seeing Simple locks in many, many recognizable places where you can just go and pick one up on the day.
Brilliant, super. Okay. Questions then. We did receive a post on Twitter to let us know we were having this recording. So a couple of questions. Do the locks comply with BS 3621, which I'm hoping, Jamie, given your expertise?
I do. So that's the BSI, which is the British Standard Institute. I'm pretty sure there are only two, and the way this works, just so people understand, is you don't get BSI qualification for the entirety of your product range by getting it once. You have to have it individual on each lock. Now, of course, whilst we've had a massive range, and this thing takes a long time to get sorted because there has to be surprise visits to your manufacturing and things, which is great because that's what gives it that accreditation. But you can't just say, this week I want to get BSI done, because you have to wait for the surprise visits and you can't choose when they come and things like that. So Yale have got BSI on one of their locks. Now, I just want to explain this to people as well, that doesn't, whilst it's useful and it is something that, of course, we want to have and we will have, it's not always the be-all, end-all for things. So, for example, Yale on their first Connexus, I think they had BSI on that one, and they had many, many challenges that unfortunately weren't tested by BSI, because BSI tests the material, things like that. But there were a couple of design faults, which I'm sure they've now fixed with the Connexus 2. I've not seen the Connexus 2 personally, but Yale, a fantastic company, so I'm sure they picked that up and sorted it. But it's easy to have certain accreditation on there, and it still have the issues that are there that are a big problem. So with us, what we tried to do, because we've got the range, is we said, okay, what are the actual issues of these? And how do we fix those whilst we're waiting for BSI? So we're not just waiting to hang on the coattails of an accreditation and say, yes, we've got BSI. We will have that. I believe the SS is one that we're going to be doing pretty much as immediately as possible, because obviously that one has got a big range in terms of whether you want it to be single-sided, double-sided, left, right, whatever it is. It's sort of almost like a one product fits all for multi-point locks. And that then makes sense to say, this one, we can get the accreditation on it. But what we've been doing really, really diligently is saying, what are the actual issues with the lock? We know the materials are good. We know they'll pass the tests. Once that gets done, and we'll go through that process, it'll all be great, fantastic. But like I said, that doesn't always mean that there are no issues with the lock. It just means that the materials are up to scratch. We know our materials are up to scratch because our UK Life branch that uses basically all of the same manufacturing process materials, they've got all the accreditations they need for everything in the Middle East. So we have no doubt whatsoever. But we're not just sitting to wait around and hang on the coattails of that. We're working really, really hard to say what are the actual issues with the lock. Forgetting, we know the materials are good. What can go wrong? What can people use to damage or break this or whatever? And how do we fix that? So we will do in the very, very short future. But in terms of the actual materials, I can promise you that they are very, very safe. And if the worry is home insurance, this is the other thing, because ours are designed to retrofit into an existing mechanism. If your home insurance says multi-point lock, and you use one of our smart locks, you've still got a multi-point lock.
Yeah.
You haven't changed the mechanism inside, you're just changing the way it activates. So these are all things that, again, countries a little bit slow, but we will. I'm sure in 3 years, it will be even easier to get, stuff like that much quicker because they've got people that are doing it regularly. Whereas at the moment, the only people that have done that, I believe, are Yale. And I think Nuki got a diamond rated cylinder. And again, this thing with Nuki, amazing company, but they only really do cylinders.
Yep.
So if you've got a multi-point lock, you can't do anything with them. So I think in a couple of years, that everyone will be caught up and everything will be easier to do, and the I's will be dotted and the T's will be crossed.
Good, super. Okay. Next question, and you may have touched this at this point earlier. Actually, can the handle engage multi-point locking by itself, or does it require physical pull-up?
Great question, and I know why this has been asked. So it requires a physical pull-up. However, the reason this gets asked is people who are doing this for Airbnb and things like that. Obviously, you're not around to control what that person does all the time. The issue that people had, or the worry that people had, was, okay, if they don't lift the handle up, does that mean it's not engaged anything and the door's just unlocked because they forgot to lift the handle? That isn't the case. So whilst they do have to lift the handle to engage that mechanism and shoot all of those bolts out, even if they don't lift that, it still disengages the spindle. And much like the lever line does, it will still then lock via the latch on the door. So even if they shut it behind them and don't do anything else, don't lift it, the door isn't just open, it will still be locked via the latch, and that's automatic. So they don't have to do anything with that. That just does it after timing. Obviously, it will always be more secure to engage all of the hooks. But if they forget, your door's not just completely unlocked, and the tamper alarm will still be on, and you should have absolutely no issues. So it's a great question. The answer is, yes, it has to be lifted, but even if it's not lifted, the door will still be locked by the latch. Yeah.
Brilliant. And the final question, and Jamie, for your knowledge, a large listener base of the Smart Home Collective are Home Assistant users, so it's a fantastic platform. One of the questions came from the Home Assistant community, was very much around any plans to have this integrated working with Home Assistant and potentially even having the Works with Home Assistant badge as a partnership with them.
Yes, absolutely. We're working on it right now. Again, with the Matter hub that we're working on as well, makes a lot of these things much easier. But the answer is yes, and it shouldn't be too long. I can't give you an exact date, as we don't know what can come up and what can go wrong with anything like that.
I'm sure.
But yes, it shouldn't be long, and all of those things will be happening.
Brilliant. Good. Jamie, anything else you want to plug about Simpled before we cut it short?
No, I just wanted to just say to all of the listeners that it can be really daunting to think about transitioning from a traditional lock and key to a smart lock. But we are a UK-based, helpful company. If you just want to check, if you just want to ask some questions, we're not going to be trying to push a sale down your throat. We're not going to be saying, oh, we're not going to talk to you unless you do X, Y, and Z. Come through to us. We've got a great support team. Myself, we've got an amazing customer support gentleman named Steve Kerr. And all of us are around to help. And if you just have questions about smart locks, even if you don't go with us, our job is to help people understand that this is going to help your lives as you get older, as your kids grow up, to be able to just let themselves in. So they're not losing keys. There's so many benefits to having a smart lock, more than it just being that's cool, that opens. Whether you go with us, whether you don't go with us, if you have any questions that you want to ask because you just don't know, come through to us. We're more than happy to help. And any step towards someone getting a smart lock from any company is a step in the right direction.
Brilliant. Thanks. Yeah, and as I said, folks, check out the website, which is simpled.uk, and it's a really good, lovely range of products now. Brilliant. Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure. As I said, thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully some of the users will check it. Sorry, the listeners will check out the website.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see the finished product.
Super. Lovely to speak to you.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Lee. Cheers, buddy. Bye.